Greetings, everyone. So, this message is for all the caretakers out there who are caring for elderly loved ones. And even if they're not elderly, just caring for a loved one. Um, I've been through that over probably the last 20 years. I took care of my dad when he had dementia. And then after that, I took care of my mom. And yeah, so the most important thing, of course, you got to take care of them, but you also got to take care of yourself in the process. Because I'm here to tell you, once the caretaking is done, if you haven't taken care of yourself, you're going to go through some physical changes. At least that's what happened to me. And that's what, when I was caretaking a lot of people who had done it before me, they said they all had some types of issues afterwards, you know. And I would imagine some, even some, maybe some psychological issues too. Um, you know, I took care of my dad. I moved in with my parents probably 2005, somewhere around there, maybe a little before, um, to help with my dad because he came down with dementia. And he was just too much for my mom to handle. Before he was diagnosed and he was just acting weird. And my dad was always a very gentle, highly intelligent man, but gentle and calm. But all of a sudden he was acting all agitated and everything. And it was like, I was afraid he might do something to my mom. And I've never been afraid of my dad like that. So anyway, we had him diagnosed, and it was like, yeah, he has dementia. So they put him on this dementia medication. I can't think of the name of it. I used to know it by heart because I had to give it to him every day. And but that cooled him down. He was more back to his normal self. It's just that he had dementia. And I don't know if those of you that have been some around someone with dementia, they'll ask you the same question over and over and over again for an hour. It's like they can remember stuff that happened in 1940, but they can't remember what happened like 2 minutes ago. So it's all you can do is give them love, but you're still human and real, and it's not easy to, you know, sometimes you lose your cool. You lose your cool. Not crazy, but sometimes you'd be like, "Yo, man, stop asking me the same question." It's just normal. So anyway, I took care of my dad. Then my dad passed. The thing about taking care of my dad, it wasn't that difficult because my mom was still healthy. She's a year older than him, but she didn't have dementia or anything. So yeah, so when my dad was alive, I could still go do stuff. I could go to movies, I could go to concerts. I could pretty much do what I wanted. I used to go to my favorite music festival, the Sierra Nevada World Music Festival. Shout out to Kati. Um, I used to do that every summer, and I knew my mom had it under control. I think we had a couple of people come in and assist us with my dad, and they were cool, but it's better that a loved one deals with them. I mean, if you can afford to help and all that, that's great, and sometimes it does give you a break. Okay, so anyway, my dad died in 2010. He was 89, and that was the same year my mom, who was a year older, she was 90. She had a mastectomy. She had breast cancer. So 2010 was a very very tough year. Um, so my mom, she's always been very strong, and she recovered. She had one breast removed, and she went through her little rehab, and she was good. So even then, I was dealing with her. I was, feeding her and make sure she got fed, make sure taking care of her. But I was still able to do stuff. I could go to movies, concerts. I could do everything I want. I can hang out with my brethren and sistren. Um, until she reached a certain point. See, the thing about my mom, even though she was fit, I don't understand how she was able to remain so fit for so long because she had all kind of disease, all kind of situations. She had a bad heart. She had a heart attack. My dad had a heart attack. Um, she had kidney issues. Um, there was other stuff. Yeah, there was other stuff, but it was amazing. It used to amaze me that she was so strong despite having all of these things. Um, so yeah, so after my dad died, I was still able to do a bunch of stuff because she was still pretty fit. But then as the years went on, you know, she got worse and worse. Um, to everybody else, she seemed sharp still, but I could see the deterioration. She was getting what they call elder dementia. But she was cool up until she was like maybe 90, 95, then 96. She started being hospitalized more, and maybe around 96, when she was 96, she had to go on dialysis. She had been in the hospital. Her doctor saved her life a couple of times, and her kidneys had actually started failing. So it was time for her to go in the hospital. So, or I'm sorry, it was time for her to go on home dialysis. So I usually don't talk this long on video, so sometimes I, get scrambled here. But so yeah, she went on dialysis, and we opted for the home dialysis because uh, with what her doctor told us, and just in my own research, it's like the dialysis when you go to a place, it's very exhausting for the patient because you go in like on a Monday. It just drains you. You spend all of Tuesday recovering, and then Wednesday you got to go back and do it all again. Saying and Thursday, you recovering, and you got to go back Friday. So it's like your life is pretty much. So we opted for the home dialysis because that way she could do it while she's sleeping. And then when she wakes up, she has energy. It was the best situation for her. Now, for me, it meant that I had to be there every night and administer the dialysis. I had to learn how they had to teach me, spend a week teaching me how to do it. And I did it, and I would do it again. Um, so yeah, I had to do that every night. And, every now and then we would take a break because, she'd be tired of being hooked up every night. And I would just need a break because I'd be tired. And then I was cooking, and, my mom, she used to laugh at me when I was a child because I was so picky. But as she got old, man, I never seen anyone so picky. And then the stuff she wanted to eat was all the bad stuff that her doctors were saying she can't eat anymore. And so it just put me in a bad situation. I'd be trying to get her to eat the right thing, but then she wouldn't eat it. So sometimes I would just have to break down and kind of give her what she wanted, which I hated to do, but at the same time, you don't want to see your parent unhappy. But anyway, just to cut to the chase, she actually lived till she was 99. Her doctor used to tell her, I'm going to get you to 100, and then you're on your own. You know, he was a great doctor. He would always lighten up the mood. And so she almost made it to 100. Okay. So the reason I'm making this video, though, is to tell all of you caretakers, even though all your energy has to go to this person, whoever it is that you're caring for, take care of yourself. It's hard to do. I did it for a while. Last 2 years of her life, though, I slacked off considerably, you know, and I paid for it afterwards. You know, people told me, people said once you, other caretakers would say, once they die and you're done caretaking, you're gonna have scars, you're gonna have emotional, physical stuff that you got to deal with. So, you know, that might happen anyways. That's why I'm stressing it's important to take care of yourself in every way that you can. I slacked off and started eating stuff I hadn't eaten in years. I was comfort eating because I was just like, you know, I wasn't dealing with, I was kind of like in a state of depression, although I wasn't really dealing with it because I was too busy dealing with my mom, you know. But my message to you is, no matter what, man, you get your exercise in. Even if you got to call someone and say, come sit with my parent while I take a walk or whatever. Because they do get, you know, my mom did get to a point where I couldn't leave her alone. You know, I was afraid she would try to cook something and set the house on fire, that kind of stuff. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Okay. So, yeah. So, because after she passed, and she, like I said, she lived a long life, a good life. Both my parents lived great lives, and I'm proud of them. They were great people. They helped a lot of people. You know, everything I have, I owe to them. But yeah. So since my mom died, and it's like I never really eased into being an older person, being an elder, because I was too busy dealing with her. So it was like when she was gone, all of a sudden I was like, wow, I'm old now. What happened? It's like you feel like you missed a whole period of your life. Not only that, the first time I drove, you know, I live in LA, the home of the freeways. First time I drove at night, because I hadn't been on the freeway in a couple of years. I was just dealing with her. First time I drove, man, I could hardly see. You know, the lights were reflecting off the concrete, and it was like, so it took me a minute to just, it takes a minute to get readjusted. Plus, there's some you might go through some physical ailments, you know, like immediately after she passed, I was cool for a minute, but then I started having digestive issues. Um, I had stopped exercising the last 2 years. I started eating stuff that I hadn't eaten in 30 years, or, you know, even more. You know, sweets and different things, and got really out of shape and out of condition. And I'm still trying to deal with that to this day. The other thing that was affected was my sleep, because I'd be there for her all through the day. By the time I would go to bed, she would go to bed at maybe 11. She used to like to watch the late news. And then I would have to hook her up to the dialysis machine. And then I would come in my studio and try to do some music, but I'd have to wind down first, you know, for a half hour, and then I start doing music. By that time, it's 12:30, you know, and if I get a creative spark, I'm up till 3. Then I had to wake up with her at 7, and I did that for 2 years. So one of the things I'm still suffering from now is it's hard for me to go to bed at a reasonable time, you know. And as a musician, there's nights where I'm gonna stay up late, you know, because sometimes I like making music at those hours because it's still, there's a certain stillness in the vibe, you know. You don't hear traffic and all that. So, but it's still important to get your rest, especially as an older person, you know, because then you can control it more. If you get up early, even if you take a nap in midday or whatever, then you eat, then you can work on your music or whatever it is you do. Um, and some nights you might stay up late. That's just part of doing music, but you can't do it every night. At least I can't do it every night. Not now. You know, it's just I'm trying to stay as healthy as I can. So yeah, so that's the sole purpose of this video is to just encourage you, if you're a caretaker, taking care of someone elderly, it's a job. And the other thing is, I didn't even know I could have got paid for it. Now I would do it for free because that's my parents, you know. So that, but by the time I found out that I could be getting paid by the state, I was too tired to even do the paperwork and all that. It's a draining job, and caretakers should be paid, you know, because it's just the way things should be. So yeah, but it was too late into it for that. And like I said, that I wasn't really worried about that. But for those of you that are doing it now, know that you can get paid by, I don't know if it's a state thing or a federal thing, but investigate that. But the main thing is take care of yourself, be on some kind of exercise program. And I was for a minute, I was doing yoga and stuff. I was going to the yoga place, but this was when I could still leave. Once I couldn't leave the home, I mean, I would still leave, but I would wait till she was asleep and I'd run out to the store, get some food, come back, that type of thing. You know, once I got into that phase, I really let myself go. And I'm paying for it now. I'm much better than I was a year and a half ago. Um, but you know, it's not easy. But who said life was gonna be easy? You know, we just live life and do what we have to do. And so yeah, I just felt it was important for me to deliver this message for all you beautiful people that are caretakers. You know, because you're really doing the work. You know, you're not just putting your parents in an old folks home. Because I'm telling you, man, like I said, we put my dad in one like the last 2 months of his life, but we kept him at home as long as we could, as long as it was safe for him to be at home. And so, yeah, y'all have a hard job, and you know it's gonna change your life, but just don't let it change in a negative fashion. That's why I say, take care of yourself. Have some type of exercise schedule, even if you can't get out and walk like you want. Uh, you know, have some type of exercise routine that you can do at home. And if you and then at times have someone come over and sit with your loved one while you walk or do, you know, do whatever you have to do. So anyway, I just wanted to drop that on all the caretakers because you are much loved and much respected from me. Okay? And everyone should have that kind of love and respect. You know, those kind of people that just, when their parents start getting old, they just put them in an old folks' home. I'm not with that. You know, I'm not casting judgment on anyone, but nah, that's not the way to do it. And you know, real people don't do that. You deal with your parents as long as you can. You know, sometimes it gets to that point. I get it, but wait till it gets to that point. You know. So anyway, yeah, take care of yourselves, people. All right. Love and blessings. Rastafari.